I'd like to call the meeting to order of the Board of Leavenworth County Commission. Would like to invite everyone to stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For the record, Commissioner Klemp and Commissioner Smith are present. Commissioner Holland will be absent today. I'd like to start with a moment of silence. I'd like to start the meeting with public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to speak, please come forward, state your name and address.
Linda Sturgeon, 16950 206th Street, Tonganoxie. Couple of things. One, we still don't have the third recycle bin in Tonganoxie.
I noticed that last night, and I come through about 8:30 last night, and I noticed that.
You have to get there within about 3 hours of the truck picking
Right.
it up, or it's just...
Okay. Well, and that's why we were adding the third bin. And do you know where we're at on that, Mr. Lawfrey?
We have asked DEFCON multiple times on where that is, why we haven't received it yet. They're not billing us for it, but we have asked them probably weekly since the time that we first discussed it, and we just have not gotten a response.
Okay. I guess we'll go to the next phase, and that is tell them, not ask them, I guess.
Well,
Yeah.
we told them we want another bin, they haven't brought it. I guess the next phase would be that we notify them that we no longer need their services, and we try to get somebody else to do it, but I don't know who else can carry and provide that service.
Okay.
Secondly, when I was here last, I asked about Project Green and what companies the Tonganoxie people had chased off from Tonganoxie, and as you recall, the response I got was a lot of fluff and not very much information. The necessity for confidentiality was repeated again. You know, Tonganoxie is a pretty small town, and so it's pretty easy to find out information if you want it. My understanding from some pretty reliable sources is that one of the companies that was chased off was a chemical company that was so toxic that they were going to build a building within a building on the Tonganoxie Industrial Park. That facility would have been closer to the elementary school than the Tyson facility that was in question. So, you know, if we as a group in Tonganoxie chased off that kind of facility, I don't feel bad about that. So I just wanted to go on record for that. But what I really want to talk about today is one of the questions that has come up repeatedly in these meetings, and it came up the first time, the very first day that we were all up here on that Thursday after the announcement was made on Tuesday, was about if the state had the ability to somehow override the zoning that was approved by this county. And every time that question's been asked, it's been either referred for further review, or it has been kind of poo-pooed as well. There was a cell tower in the north end of the county, and we won on that one, so I don't think that there's any question about that. You know, several people have been asking for records based on the Open Records Act in Kansas, and one of the emails that I discovered this week was from Mr. Lawfrey to several people at Tyson and in the state asking, and I'm going to quote this here so I don't get it wrong. It said, and this was dated on the 6th of September, so this was the day after the announcement. And Mr. Lawfrey said, during our meeting in Springdale I believe that's Springdale, Arkansas, where Tyson is headquartered. Zoning was discussed, and I believe it was mentioned by Secretary McClaskey, that's the Secretary of Agriculture, that the state would have some involvement in this. Can someone let me know if that is the case, or will this strictly be handled at the local level by my staff? If my staff will be involved, I need the contact person at the state to put them in touch with. Also, who at Tyson will be the contact person for this? So my question to Mr. Lawfrey and this commission is, what was the answer to that question? Because the question's been asked several times, and there has not been a definitive answer that the state will not be involved in zoning. And if, in fact, the state is involved in zoning and can override the local zoning decisions, then I guess that really scares me. So,
Well, I'll address your cell tower. That's federal. That's really not a state. Am I correct on that? When it comes to cell towers, communications?
Federal laws regarding communications issues would override any local decisions.
But as far as I've found, there has never been the state overriding local zoning. Now, that's just my research.
I received your request last night about 4 o'clock, but I had something else going on, so I did not see it.
and I appreciate that. I just found it, wanted to give you a heads up about what I was going to talk about.
And I didn't get it until this morning, so I did reply to your email, but you probably haven't had a chance to get it because you were on the way yet.
Right.
So, and the response is that it took some prodding. The state's original response was you have your own legal counsel that need to do that research. But I did find somebody at the state who could answer the question for me. It was their chief legal counsel. And they stated, and I provided you this quote from them, and that is that it's local authority, the state or the governor has the ability to override local authority.
They do?
Do not.
Do not.
Neither the state nor the governor.
Okay.
And I responded to that.
Okay.
If I could help clarify that issue, Commissioners, the state of Kansas has enacted laws.
They're having trouble hearing you, David.
The state of Kansas has enacted laws that authorize local government to handle planning and zoning issues. There are instances where federal regulations such as cell towers come into play. But generally, the state leaves the planning and zoning to local authorities.
And that's kind of what I found, and it's never been done at the state level to override local zoning that I could find.
Okay.
So, that's the best I can do right now.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
Cecilia Pruitt, 21800 Parallel Road, Tonganoxie. I want to continue on with what Mrs. Sturgeon brought up, and my question in all of this is when you get down to where our county commissioner has written closer to the end where he says, can someone let me know if that is the case, or will this strictly be handled at the local level by my staff? I've listened to Commissioner Klemp, talk in a meeting about what our county administrator's role was. I didn't realize that Leavenworth County Planning and Zoning was his staff. Is that true?
It is.
So in other words, are we saying that, like I had taken some information to a person on Leavenworth County Planning and Zoning and asked him to share it with other people, and this was at their very first meeting in September. So do they as a board, would they not have been able to have made this decision? Would they have been instructed as to what decision they needed to make?
We have a planning commission that makes recommendations that are not county employees. This never made it to the planning commission.
Right, and that's what I had always kept that sort of in the back of my pocket. That's why I say I took some information there. The same type of educational information that I've given to all of you gentlemen, thinking that it was going to go to planning and zoning, but I'm just asking if it went to planning and zoning, were those people going to be able to make an independent decision? Or were they going to be?
Recommendations. We have a planning commission member here
All right.
today.
And are their recommendations followed? Or who decides whether those recommendations would be followed or would not be followed?
The board would be the final. County commission.
I have one other question that I'd like to ask. looking back at some of this open records, I see that, Mr. Lawfrey, you are the person who made the original request to visit a Tyson plant. That was on September 7th. And you actually asked to visit Sedalia because of the close proximity. Again, I didn't see an answer to that, but obviously we ended up going to a plant in Tennessee anyway. I'm just wondering why Tyson did not want to take you to the Sedalia plant.
I didn't attend that trip. I went to Springdale with the original group. As far as what they chose for Tennessee, my understanding is, and again, I did not have any input into that decision, but my understanding is they chose the Tennessee plant because it was the most similar to what's going in here. And I think they said that in Sedalia, they may process other animals other than chickens.
All right, thank you very much.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Mr. Matthews?
Commissioners, I have a request or a clarification. Traditionally, whenever you open a meeting here at the commission, you start with the flag salute,
Yes, sir.
or Pledge of Allegiance, I should say. For years now, the Planning and Zoning Commission refused the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. They just start talking about their meeting.
I was not aware of that. Were you, Commissioner?
I found out recently.
I don't know if I'm going to use the term legally, it's up to David, I guess,
How about
whether
morally?
they can be forced to do it or suggested to do it or what, but a personal opinion, I feel that we should do it as a body because we are a quasi-governmental body and we're here in a military town. How much more prompting does one need?
John, I
Thank
want
you.
to thank you for bringing that to my attention because I was unaware of that, because we do not attend planning commission meetings.
Why don't we have David look into the legality of it, and we'll see what direction we're going to go to resolve that.
I'd appreciate that, and I'd like to get that resolved.
You know, if you have some headstrong people and you direct them, I don't need to be on this board. So then we have to reevaluate. Well, you don't want to be on the board because you don't want to do the pledge and get off the board, or you cow down to what they want. So,
Yeah, because we don't want people to start taking a knee or anything.
no need.
So,
That would be an improvement. At least they would acknowledge it.
no, John, thank you for bringing that to our
Yeah.
attention.
So David, look into that.
Okay. Anyone else from the public wish to speak? We'll close public comment. I'd like to move this around a little bit because we have an employee of the month that is wanting to get back to work, and I want to acknowledge her, and so she can get back to work.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Jules Shepard. She's been in the Treasurer's Office for almost eight years in March.
8 years.
And she is a tax specialist and specializes in all forms of tax, from motor vehicle to real estate, personal property. She does an outstanding job, so she is the Employee of the Month for November.
All right. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
and thank you for your service and your 8 years of dedication to Leavenworth County.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I'll try not to back into your cars.
Yeah.
I
Can we
can't,
get a good picture for the front page?
no, but I can't believe she drives,
Smile, where do you want your smile? Oh, okay. I really can't hardly back that truck out.
I'd like a picture taken with her by her pickup. That's class.
That's class.
That's class.
Thank you. I guess we're ready for a presentation from the 27 committee. Chris?
Well, thank you, Commissioners, for having me here this morning. I really appreciate it. And for the public, I just want to make a quick few comments. I am a veteran of the United States Marine Corps and the Army, so don't hold it against me either way, maybe. But Marine Corps is part of the Navy. I will acknowledge that.
Thank you.
I've been the executive director of the 27th Committee for just about a year, 13 months now. But prior to that, I was the economic analyst for the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs for the Kansas City region. And my job was to go out and have companies in the Kansas City area sign up to hire veterans. And I'm very pleased to say that Kansas City regional companies have made commitments to hire 10,000 veterans. That was the fourth highest of all the metros in the United States of America. So during that process, I learned that many companies in the Kansas City region wanted to hire veterans, but also we collected information from transitioning military service members, whether they be Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, and the number one, number two, and number three choices of transitioning military personnel is to have a career in security. And so that was in the back of my mind when I met with some retired military officers from Fort Leavenworth. And of course, at that time, the military, as it is even more so today, was really concerned about security. And Fort Leavenworth has some international significant assets relative to security, whether it be the disciplinary barracks or the Global Simulation Center, where you know they have warfighter exercises, those kinds of things. So that was when the seed was planted for the idea of establishing a Global Security Innovation Center over a year ago. And in the past year, we've just been slowly making progress on solidifying and focusing that concept. So I just wanted to give a quick background about that. So what the 27 Committee, as many people know, but some people in the audience might not know, it's a 501c3 nonprofit corporation, and it was founded at the urging of the governor of Kansas back in 2014, when there was a concern about base realignment and closings that would occur in effect. Also was the sequester on the defense budget. Its impact might occur at the local community level with military establishments. Some senior military officers, Lieutenant General Bob Arter, who is the retired, but he is the Kansas Secretary of the Army. He and another business person, Jerry Riley, led the way to create the 27 Committee. The name of the 27 Committee comes after the founding of Fort Leavenworth in 1827, and its role is to encourage better collaboration between the military and the civilian world in the area of economic development. As I said, about a year ago, over a year ago, we came up with the idea of the Global Security Innovation Center, and regrettably, today, there's a greater need for it than ever. With the recent terrorist acts in New York City. So, really, bottom line up front, security is the number one priority for the government and the private sector, and it covers a lot of areas. And I'd like to just point out real quick a news blast that came out the other day that Kansas State University Institute for Biosecurity was recently collaborating with the United States government on a report on the need for better biosecurity for agriculture. There have been attempts to infect animals with the hope of those vectors transitioning to the human population. And so the Kansas State University is at the forefront of that research. So the reason I'm here today is the 27th Committee in developing the Global Security Innovation Center. We have applied for grants to different organizations, and we are very fortunate that one very large private foundation has agreed or has expressed interest in funding the building for the Global Security Innovation Center, $2,250,000. But they had a request that we have a match for that, and with that match, they would fully consider to fund the Global Security Innovation Center. So that's why I'm here before the county commission, is requesting a match for the $2.25 million, requesting $500,000 that would go to the acquisition of the site at 16th and Metropolitan, and 3.8 acres, and that land would be improved, and we would call it the Veterans Campus, and on it, that would be where the Global Security Innovation Center would be built. So I'm just going to move through this. I know you got this in your packet, but we'll go through all the slides for the public as quickly as possible. So I just told you about this. One of the things that the 27 committee was recently involved with in that bottom bullet there, some of you might know that U.S. Army University is now established at Fort Leavenworth, and the 27 committee provided a white paper on that and the value of having that here. The U.S. Army University it has currently enrolled 350,000 students. They're currently ramping up their activities. They have all the service schools in the United States Army that come under it, as well as 11 centers of excellence, one of them being the Center for Cybersecurity Center of Excellence at Fort Gordon, Georgia. So we were involved with establishing that. Those 350,000 students are not coming here. Okay, I just wanted to clear that up. But that's the global enrollment for Army University. So this is what I wanted to point out. When I was talking about the veterans earlier, companies in the Kansas City area made a commitment earlier of hiring 10,000 veterans. A lot of them were in security fields. The veterans really want to, transitioning service members want to go into security. And what I just want to point out with this one slide here, on the left column where it says Army experts, all those different operations at Fort Leavenworth currently, the Army Management Staff College, the Command and General Staff College, the Global Simulation Center, those are all operated by people, soldiers and civilian contractors. Out of Fort Leavenworth, every year about 700 soldiers transition out. Most of them are senior service members, a lot of them are retired actually. About 50% of them are officers. But they have run all of these operations for the United States Army. And it would be wonderful if we could use that fantastic human talent into the civilian world. And so we give some examples up there under the Global Security Innovation Center of what could occur. The Global Security Innovation Center would be a mixed-use activity in the sense of universities providing educational programs, but more importantly, conducting research related to the United States military, but then also a significant portion of the veterans or the service members getting out of Fort Leavenworth want to start their own businesses. And here in Fort Leavenworth, in Leavenworth, you have one of the poster childs for that is BMA company, a small business, veteran-owned business here on Cherokee Street, that this year won a $400 million contract. And they've only been in existence, I think it was since 2008. So there's real opportunities for these highly talented military personnel to leverage their expertise, their training, their education in the military into the civilian world, give them to the current security environment that we find ourselves in. So as I mentioned, the Global Security Innovation Center, this is what it would provide, education. And I put STEM up there, that's science, technology, engineering, and math. And that is actually a hot topic for the United States Army and also for U.S. Navy. They are actually funding projects for high school students to become better equipped in STEM as they come into the services to be service members. But through the university level, we have had written interest from several universities to collaborate with the Global Security Innovation Center. And right now, we haven't really been actively soliciting interest, but I've been focused on what are called Research One universities. Those are research universities that conduct a significant amount of research, usually over $100 million a year. And in my mind, they were very important players to encourage research and development, which means new products and companies in Leavenworth. We would provide training. For example, the University of Maryland, they've offered that they have a program in anti-terrorism. It's a short certificate program that could be delivered to companies in the area as well as military personnel. And research and development, as I mentioned. So conceptually, this is the whole role of the Global Security Innovation Center. You have 700 soldiers that get out of Fort Leavenworth every year. Plus, there's over 9,000 visiting students to Fort Leavenworth every year. And you have to also consider their spouses. And in some cases, their family members. They might have a son or a daughter that's in college at their age. And the idea of the Global Security Innovation Center is to be a catalyst to facilitate those folks to either start businesses or get good training or education to go into a civilian job. So then you have new firms and careers, and then that affects the personal and regional economic growth of the area. All right, I was a professor for many years, so let me step back for a moment. I'll try not to be too academic, but this chart is actually very, very important. This is the most important chart that I want to show you today. So that blue worm line up there, that's the product life cycle. And this was developed by economists back in the 1960s to explain how regions grow economically, and now it's part of the holy grail of any large business or corporation. So in the beginning of the product life cycle, in the beginning of time, you have the invention and development of technology. So for example, think of Steve Jobs, Apple Computer. Think of Henry Ford with the Model T. Think of Bill Gates with Microsoft DOS. So they invent these things, and the product immediately shoots up. But what's really important are the people that are there. It's the engineers, it's the inventors. That human talent is critical. And then as the product just goes a little bit further in development, in business it's called the valley of death. That's where firms are seeking capital or other kinds of assistance to proceed with the development of the product. If they get past that, then they go into adoption and growth. And so just think about this line right here where the Ford Motor Company was growing exponentially in Detroit, where Apple Computer was growing exponentially with the Apple IIe, where Microsoft Corporation was growing exponentially with DOS. But then it attracts competitors into the market, and so they start beating up each other. And so they reach a maturity level, and they start changing the way they're deployed. Usually their low-cost manufacturing will go to low-cost areas like Mexico, but their high-tech areas like research and development will always remain where they started at. And then they can go into decline. And if you think about it, that's what happened to the automobile industry, the U.S., and others. And then they can innovate. And so what happened is Apple invented the iPhone, the iPad. They got a whole new product line. The Apple IIe doesn't exist anymore. Ford Motor Company invented the aluminum-bodied F-150 pickup truck, which has really revitalized the company. And then also, of course, at Microsoft, Bill Gates and company, they invented Windows, now up to Windows 10 and a lot of other products, so they've innovated. So I want to explain that, and the role of the Global Security Innovation Center in that yellow area is to help in this area of the early knowledge and tech transfer. So you've got all these talented soldiers coming from Fort Leavenworth. You have different entities like the Procurement Technical Assistance Center that are trying to help small companies to get defense contracts, those kinds of things. So it's kind of pulling all this together, as well as universities being involved with education and universities being involved with research here in Leavenworth. No universities are really doing any research in Leavenworth whatsoever. But that's the key to long-term economic growth. This product cycle also explains why regions grow. I mentioned the Ford Motor Company. You think of Detroit. You think of Apple. You think of Silicon Valley. You think of Microsoft and what happened in Seattle. Those are the key assets that you need to have long-term regional economic growth. And the other important point about these people up here, these are all high-paying jobs. Recently, veterans, transitioning service members from Fort Leavenworth went through the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation program, the fellowship program, to companies in the Kansas City area. And I assisted them in doing that. And they were very successful in getting all of these transitioning soldiers jobs the average salary, as I recall, above $70,000 a year. So that program is really successful if the veterans are prepared and assisted in that transition. So I just wanted to go through that. I'm sorry I got academic there for a moment. So we selected a site in 16th and Metropolitan. And the reason is, I have, as a university administrator, I was the former dean of Missouri Western State University and the vice provost of a large university. It's really important for universities to be close to the student base, and that's why, for example, the University of Kansas wants to stay across the street from Fort Leavenworth in the Fairfield Inn. It is absolute paramount. We know about that in university business models. I needed to have a site that was big enough. I think I gave you a little bit of history before, but for the public, we looked at another building that was available, was vacant, but unfortunately that building went up for sale, and the new possible owner couldn't fit the Global Security Innovation Center into that idea. And that was the Abernathy building on 4th Street. So this is the site, 3.8 acres. I had J.E. Dunn was very helpful for Gratis. They laid out a basic construction cost estimate, and they also identified that 30,000 square feet of additional space could be built in that site in accordance with the City of Leavenworth zoning regulations. So we selected the idea of having a concrete dome, and there's a lot of really good reasons for that. You might know that many school districts in the state of Kansas, in the state of Missouri, in the state of Oklahoma, in the state of Texas are moving toward these concrete dome structures because according to the FEMA, they're the highest rated tornado shelter possible. They're basically impervious to an F5 tornado. And so for different school districts are now developing these concrete dome structures. So the idea is, in this conceptual floor plan, there's different classrooms there, also rooms for research, but there's offices for companies, small companies to interface with the universities, and then also a computer lounge. I contacted the architect who works closely with the largest builder of concrete domes, and they gave us a cost estimate of $2.25 million, which I mentioned earlier, that this private foundation is willing to fund. The other thing I just want to say is that I did check with the City of Leavenworth, and there are adequate utilities on site. And there will be some required earthwork, but we don't know exactly how much until we actually do a site plan. So that's basically an overview of the site that we're looking at to developing what we call the Veterans Campus. Because quite frankly, I don't know if you know, the Department of Defense made a regulation many years ago that only a certain number of higher educational establishments can be on a military post. Fort Leavenworth is at its maximum. And those higher education organizations have a 5-year contract. So basically, many other prestigious universities, for example, like the University of Kansas, are locked out. They cannot deliver their programs on post. So different prestigious universities and others are looking some way to deliver programs. And I mentioned the University of Maryland, their anti-terrorism certificate. So we gauge that there's more than sufficient demand for this facility. In fact, when I was the dean at Missouri Western State University, I was trying to establish a satellite campus here in Leavenworth, but I just couldn't do it because the capital costs were too expensive. And that's exactly what University of Kansas had found out also, to do it by myself or by the university itself. But with this, when you have several universities involved, and basically the 27 committee is providing the space, information technology, and then also classroom scheduling, it greatly reduces the capital cost and the operating cost to higher education. So this is where we are, and I just want to clarify some of these business impacts. The first is the tax revenues to the county. Right now, the county gets $588 on that parcel because it's classified vacant. I contacted the county assessor, and he gave me the bill formula, and I calculated it out, and I wasn't sure, so I called him back up, and I asked Rob if he would still, could he calculate this himself? And that was the number he came up with. And it's, I understand, comprehensive of all the things the county property tax goes to. Now, I wasn't sure, because different states have different laws regarding nonprofit corporations. Being a 501c3 means you're exempt from federal tax. It doesn't mean anything really at the state or local level, but apparently in the state of Kansas, 501c3s can be exempt from property tax. And I've mentioned to you all that we have done a financial pro forma, and I'll show you that in a moment, but we've incorporated paying a property tax, and we can just call it a payment in lieu of taxes as we move this project into the future. So the economic impact over a 10-year period, what I did was I contacted the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis that does the economic modeling for the United States government, and I asked them for economic multiplier coefficients for the Leavenworth County area. They gave those to me, and I applied them based on what the output of the project would be, how much money was expended, and that's the economic impact, $12.5 billion over a 10-year period. That does not include businesses that might develop, like I mentioned earlier, BMA with their $400 million contract. Doesn't include that. It's just this project only. We estimate about 47 jobs would be created in construction and also operations. And there's also a visitor component to this thing. And I have estimated about 1,836 visitors will come to the site on an annual basis. And so this is the funding situation. And the foundation is willing to provide the $2.25 million if we can get leverage or a match for that. And that's where I'm requesting from the county commissioners. And the breakout of that is as follows. It's really to purchase the site. And the site, I provided you with the appraisal. I can give you the full appraisal. The appraised value is much higher than that figure that we negotiated as a sales price. And then, of course, we have to do the site plan, which is really important for figuring out the layout of the facility, but also the water runoff from the site, potential earthwork. And this is a guesstimate, that's a good estimate. We don't know until we actually get a site plan, and we can figure out exactly how much earthwork has to be done. And then a road or parking lot, and that was an estimate that was done relative or by J.E. Dunn. And then a contingency figure. So that's what we are looking at, or requesting from the county for the economic development funding. And so I think what's really important about this project is how it affects the brand of Leavenworth. And the most important thing is bringing a national and regional, if not international, research center to Leavenworth. There are international ties to this. The United States has formal agreements with several countries to collaborate in security, whether it be physical or cyber. And we have relationships with some of those. And of course, we have a lot of those folks that come through the Command and General Staff College that are international visitors involved with security that would be really interested in further education or research at the site. As I mentioned, this is all high salary. The other thing is, development of this kind of research facility is the beginning of attracting other companies to the area. We're talking about a whole different ballgame here, where it's fundamental research in security that's very attractive to banks, security firms, a lot of other folks that would want to participate in some fashion. And that's possibly what would happen out at the Veterans Campus, another 30,000 square feet, is we can see other companies actually establishing facilities there. It's a model project. Just want to let you know, I told you I work for the U.S. Veterans Affairs as a contractor, economic analyst. I've spoken to them recently about this project. They're really, U.S. Veterans Affairs headquarters was really interested, and they want to be invited. if and when there's a groundbreaking on this project, so they can lend their support to it. The other part about it is this is going to be iconic and interesting facility. And we want to be that way, to stand out, have Leavenworth stand out, and have a notable facility for people to see and for visitors to Fort Leavenworth to tour. And I want to just tell you really quick, this is not a new idea, not at all. University of Central Florida, I used to work in Florida as the economist for the state of Florida. University of Central Florida did a similar kind of operation with Navy first, and then subsequently with the Army. And now they have a multi-billion-dollar operation of cooperation and simulation, doing simulation research with the military services on a lot of different topics. I worked overseas in Dubai, and Dubai had this, I worked at the International Academic City with several hundred universities, all were in the same building, providing education. The same is true in other parts of the United States. In Houston, there's some community colleges that have multi-university facilities. These are not new ideas, we're just basically copying them and implementing them here in Leavenworth. If I could, I wanted to quickly show you another item here. We worked out, the commission, if you have not seen this is a conceptual schedule plan for the development of the site and also the construction of the building and its operation. So really the bottom line here is we're looking at operations starting, if everything is approved for funding, sometime in the fall of next year. And there's some item tasks there that might require more or less time, but it's really hard to get a handle on them right now, especially with the vertical construction that might take place. The dome construction is usually very quick compared to conventional construction. We still have to do the interiors. The other item I wanted to show you that you have seen a concept before, and this was really important for us, and that is the financial sustainability. I mentioned that I worked in universities, and my key thing when I was developing a satellite campus was to make sure that the thing was going to be financially sustainable, be able to stand on its own legs. And that's what we've done here with this financial pro forma. And it's laid out by year, and I'm going to increase the size so the audience can better see some of this stuff. It's laid out by year. And so we've estimated all the various costs. And initially, the first year, of course, it's going to be like a startup, scaling, and then it'll go up to half operation and full operation, and that's what's accounted for there. So the other thing, what is the bottom line? So you see in the first year, we're seeing a potential surplus of $8,000, but then after the startup is always the hardest, because after you have all the capital expenditures, then thereafter it goes into a positive cash flow into the future. You might ask, well, what are we going to do with that positive cash flow? This is purely speculative, but we talked about potentially providing scholarships to veterans to supplement their GI Bill, or also providing seed capital grants to veterans and also university faculty to prepare full-blown research proposals to the National Science Foundation or to the U.S. military, etc. The other thing I just wanted to point out, this bottom line here, is the economic impact. So in total, it would be about $12 million for the Leavenworth area, but into the future you can see how it changes. The first year it has a really big impact, and that's because of the construction. But thereafter, the operations take over and has a growing economic impact in the region. So with that, Commissioners, if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Commissioner Cliff, do you have any questions?
Yes. Continuously, can everybody hear me? Continuously, I have said that there needs to be participation of everybody. Tim just left, who is the city manager of Lansing, but it goes with the city of Leavenworth. They need to be a participant. They have economic development funds in the sales tax. We have them. So I think the city of Leavenworth needs to be a participant. We can do one of three, maybe four things. A study to have staff look at it and come back in a week, and they're going to say, we can't do it in a week, so we'll remove staff out of this equation. Or we can do it today, or we can say, we're not going to do it at all. I do want to point out, you said General Arter. Because I couldn't get the Navy to do it, I assigned myself as his attaché, okay? Because the Army needs a Navy guy to protect them, okay? And I'm sorry you went from a Marine to the Army, but that's all right. As a side remark, you mentioned STEM. I've tried to get several relatives to go to Pensacola. They have a STEM program down there for the kids. STEM is great. Couldn't get those relatives to go. They had soccer. Land for sale. That's the interesting part. That land's been for sale for 20, 30 years. It's just, I even looked at it 20 years ago. I like the dome effect. I've preached to the schools for years. Do not put a flat roof on a building. You got constant maintenance on a circular roof. All you got to do is get up, spray it, and paint it. It's very adequate and taking care of itself. I looked at the $500,000. There are things in there the city could do and we can do. Maybe the earth. The county could do the earth as a participant. That knocks off $75,000. The permits, the city waives permits and all that all the time. That knocks off another $20,000. Contingency, we never know where that's going to go, but that could fall off. And I guarantee you, $91,971 is much better than $588. So my way of looking at this, and I know the other commissioners will have an input, because it takes two to tango. I think, since this is economic development, the funds do not go until the grant comes through. So they're going to be sitting there where they are today. And I'm sure the the clerk, and she's not here, but the county administrator can look into that aspect. The funds are there. I would like to hear from the other commissioner that's here, and then I will finish up.
Dr. Show, the being it's off the base, off the fort, would non-veterans be able to go through this if, say, they came from the high school ROTC program or something?
Well, yes, as I mentioned about the STEM, I can see that including the school students. While we're focused on the veterans, their spouses, and their family, there's no reason why others cannot attend. We're not going to prohibit anybody. I should say, we're not going to prohibit anybody.
And you have several universities that would like to participate or?
Collaborate, yes, that's true. And Kansas State University, Kansas University formally wrote letters willing to collaborate. Other universities have contacted us. but we haven't really pushed that envelope too hard. Part of our pro forma, we have in there to hire a consultant who would, his qualifications would have to be a former university president to go ahead and contact other universities in the United States about collaborating.
I guess, have you met with the city on any of this, the city commission?
Yes, Commissioner, in fact, I met with the mayor and one of the council members, and I'd like to point out, for about 6 months, I have been regularly communicating with the city manager of Leavenworth because of technical issues. You know, we were trying to figure out things about runoff, whether proper utilities were there. And so they have received this briefing that you have received, and they're taking it under consideration. They suggested that I make a presentation to the city council at their next council meeting, but we requested not to do that right now. We're really focused on the foundation that wants to provide the funding, and then also working with the county to work out the leverage. But I have met with the city, and as I mentioned, Paul Kramer has been very, very helpful, and his public works person in trying to resolve some technical issues.
So, would this be considered a public-private partnership?
Absolutely,
Is
absolutely.
that kind of way you look at it, Commissioner?
Yep.
And you've not approached the city commission about maybe contributing some funds toward the 500,000?
We, only with one, the mayor and one council member and the city manager, we outlined some potential ideas. But I don't know exactly what the city can do, given what constraints it has. You know, whether or not they can deploy, for example, earth moving equipment, given other projects that they might have already underway.
Right.
So I didn't know that, but I did ask them to consider how they could participate, and they said they
Okay. Commissioner Clint, do you have any other questions? Dr.
Nope.
Shove?
I have a thought, though, and I have no more questions.
Well, I have a thought too, out of respect for Commissioner Hall, and that is in his district. This project does fall in his district, and he's not here today.
Well, I don't think that some things can't be delayed. Now, I appreciate his ability to come in and give a vote, and give conversation. I see in no way would Mr. Holland be against this project. Now,
I would not think he would be, but I don't know that.
I just want to mention, I did provide this briefing to Commissioner Holland last week. I did call him on the phone to ask if he had any questions, but I got his voicemail, and I said, please call me if you have any questions. And I know he got this presentation in the packet that the county sent out.
Okay. Do you have any other discussion on this, Commissioner Clint?
well, the only,
If I could.
yes, go ahead.
Just a couple, want to clarify. The taxes that Dr. Schultz pointed out, $91,000, that is the total tax. If the property appraised at total construction value, which is probably not likely because there's some other things than that. But let's just say that it did, the county's portion of that's about $25,000. I'm sure everybody understood that. The county's portion will be around $25,000. $91,000 is the total tax. If they agreed to a pilot, because if it's all nonprofits in there, they wouldn't necessarily even have to pay property tax on it, but they could agree to a pilot, as was mentioned. I think we had that conversation. And then that money could be used towards reimbursing the county over time. And I know location, right? But the county has recently invested $5 million into a park in Leavenworth that would have more than adequate room and infrastructure in place that I am sure, working with Leavenworth, because it's the city's project, they would be, I think that they would be interested interested in providing that land at little to no cost, which would, basically, part 500,000 is the land. They have that already available. There's another park very close to that one that also has land available, so I just want to make sure that those options are explored fully before we commit to $100,000 an acre for a new place that is going to be very limited in size.
I just want to mention, I did contact the Leavenworth Economic Development Corporation about those parks and what the costs were, but as you mentioned, location, location, location. That is why the University of Kansas absolutely has made an investment to be across the street from Fort Leavenworth. It's the way the business operates, and I've worked in universities for about 20 years in running satellite campuses, and you can make an egregious mistake by not locating your satellite campus in the correct spot, where your enrollments will be, they won't be sufficient to sustain the operation. But I already did this. We had a satellite campus, for example, at the Black County Resource Center, Missouri, West Virginia. And we had okay enrollments. Our business enrollments never exceeded 3. And so I decided to move that campus onto Highway 45 in the what's called Tuileries development. And at that location, we have enrollments exceeding expectations. And that's because it was closer to where the students actually live. And so that's a critical location issue. And that's why we came to that particular site.
I just wanted to make sure that the other option had been explored, since it would already be paid for and in place, at no additional cost, and $500,000 would not have to be come up with today, I think. And then the STEM program, I do know that at least one high school, and I believe others in Leavenworth County already offer the STEM program. I know that's a very popular item.
what's the difference?
Unfortunately, the universities do not allow that to transfer credit over, as I found out this year.
Well, there's a way to do
Sunny
that.
State.
There is a way to do that called dual credit, but the point here with the STEM is that the United States military is actually funding the STEM program. And I worked with the STEM high school in Kansas City to deliver a program myself there, and also be a reviewer of the students' work. But it gets back to collaboration, which I'm a big advocate of. We would collaborate with the schools, with STEM, and also find alternative funding to encourage more STEM. We might be able to get some out of the Navy to suspend it all, if it's called. But I think it's a very valuable role to play.
Russ.
And the last thing, and this would be more for the commission, if this is a consideration, if this is something that the board wants to proceed with, I do think it would be important to identify where we could come up with $500,000. It's obviously not budgeted.
Right.
And we have had requests in the last 6 to 7 months for other economic development type projects that we have turned down for lack of funding. So before we commit it, I'm just like, I think you said a week, Commissioner Clamp, and I would like at least that amount of time for, if the board is going to proceed with this, if they're looking for the 500,000, that the staff could then evaluate and see if there's a way that we can come up with 500,000 versus just.
And I looked at one, maybe you could make that part of the contingency, because our clock is ticking where our foundation is waiting for a response. So if the commission could be so generous as to say that contingent upon developing adequate funds and contingent upon the commitment of funds to build the Global Security Innovation Center, the county would commit to $500,000.
When you're talking about location, some years ago we were talking about the city was, let's bring the museum out on Metropolitan so we can participate. And I was pretty, yeah, well, that's a good idea. Let's get that museum, Fort Leavenworth Museum. Get it out there where, and city and Fort would participate together, and that would be a big boom. But I talked to the director, and after a little bit of talk, I said, I think you're right. They use that for a training facility for the guys at the college, the guys and gals, excuse me. It's changed since I was in the military. So you move it out there, now you got to bus them out. Much more convenient where it is. It is about location. There's no getting out of it. I had even volunteered to send some kids to the STEM program in Pensacola. Well, the school didn't like the idea necessarily. They wanted to be the director of it, and I don't like government entities saying how I'm going to spend my money. Or who's going to go. I know a kid that went there from Livermore, Kansas, didn't have anything. I mean, he lived on the other side of the street, and he became a Navy pilot, he became a TWA pilot. Probably in some people's mind, he is a solid citizen, but I know him personally. So there's advantages of location, knowing, doing. I would like to come up with some kind of statement, like Chris just mentioned, to keep it moving. I know in economic development we can come up with funds. I don't know of any other situation having to do with economic development. You mentioned, Mark, and I don't know of anything other than roads, and roads are important, I understand that, but somehow you got to pay for those roads, and a road doesn't normally pay for itself if you have 15, 20 people living on it, because their portion of paying for that road is very nominal. It is not, they're paying for a quarter mile, they're paying $1,500 a year. They're paying $100 a year. So I would like to come up with something to keep this rolling, in my personal opinion. I understand Bob isn't here, but that's been one of the problems with all government is delay, 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 because we haven't thought these ideas out. I've thought out, probably, you may not agree with my conclusions, but I've thought these out years ago. I want economic development in Leavenworth. I would like Leavenworth City to participate. Now, I realize I only have 14 months left, but somewhere the city of Leavenworth's going to want to say, "County, we'd like some help on this program," or Lansing's going to say it, or Tonganoxie. It has to be a participation. So, and I'm sure the city of Leavenworth.
Sorry.
We're not married. You don't have to say you're sorry. So, I would like to see it keep going without any hang-ups, and then as we go down the line, we correct any hang-up we have.
So, on the $2 million grant, it's 2.25. That will be decided by February. Is that correct? You'll know for sure?
Well, let me back up. They're waiting for us to come back to them with the match.
Mm-hmm.
And then as soon as we deliver that match information, then they'll decide about when they're going to fund it. That was just an estimate that I put out there.
Okay.
But our board members, Terry Dunn, Katie Dunn, he met with them. Unfortunately, I broke my leg the day before the meeting. I couldn't go. And so the foundation is just waiting for us to return their call.
Okay. And for the public, are you comfortable with mentioning the foundation that would be given the grant, or would you rather keep that quiet now?
I'd prefer not to right now.
Okay, all right.
Because you could jeopardize our.
Right.
I've done this before, and kind of what happens is that foundation will immediately get inundated with grant requests.
Okay, all right, I understand.
Not just foundations, small businesses.
Yeah.
Yeah. We need money.
Does the storage box want to contribute?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I'll send the first STEM student.
Well, that's a contribution. So basically, if we come up with some kind of a commitment to keep this rolling, the funds would never transfer until you receive your grant. Is that correct? So you would have a contract on the property contingent on receiving the grant.
Oh, there's something, I think, Mark, you mentioned it. These entities are in there, even though they're tax exempt. They don't have anything, they have to pay. Who's in charge of the building?
The 27th.
Yeah. So they're going to have to pay, the 27 committee is going to have to pay the taxes, not any entity that's in there.
Right, and I think the point is that if all the entities are tax exempt, so even if a governmental entity owns a piece of property, if we lease out a portion of that property to a for-profit entity, the property then becomes taxable. Even though we own it, we're using it for business.
Right.
So if all the entities in this building were tax exempt, the building itself couldn't be tax exempt. They were proposing potentially an agreement
Right.
that they would pay a private payment in lieu of taxes. Even if they would be exempt from taxes, they would continue to make that payment. Those are all things that would need to be part of an agreement that would be formalized by the.
Yeah, but their the taxes that, let's say KU,
Yeah.
or you want to use K-State. And we got a preference here today. We'll use KU, okay? KU says, we want to rent, and this is what we want to do. The 27 committee is going to say, and I'm just throwing out a figure, it's $100 a month. So they get $100 a month from all these people, and out of that money, 27 pays the taxes. These people aren't going to be paying any taxes.
Right.
They're just going to be,
Part of their.
yeah, so, okay.
And just a footnote to what Commissioner Smith was asking, this is a true public-private partnership, so I envision that for-profit private companies would also be participating. And so it goes to the discussion about payment in lieu of taxes and how we want to handle that.
Dr. Sho, do you feel that by the community and us putting something like this would actually be favorable in the government's eyes if they ever needed to, federal government's eyes, if they ever needed to expand the VA center or even realign bases or anything like that, that
Yes,
this community supports the military?
I also work a lot with U.S. Veterans Affairs, not only through the 27 committee, but I was appointed by U.S. Veterans Affairs as the co-chairperson for the Kansas and Missouri Community Veterans Engagement Board, which services Leavenworth County. And I regularly meet with the East Kansas VA administration. And there's things that VA is interested in public-private partnerships to expand their reach to veterans. So I think there's some possibilities there, and also with the state. And I can also back up to the slide behind you there about the University of Central Florida, that after Central Florida started a small establishment, it grew into 3 large buildings and a multi-billion-dollar activity, a lot of it funded by the federal government, as well as private companies like Johnson & Johnson's and McDonald's that were doing simulation to business activities.
Okay. And Commissioner Klemp had mentioned about participation, and I know Commissioner Holland had said a few meetings back about Platte County not contributed to the 27 committee. Is that true?
That is true, because there's, in the state of Missouri, there's a constitutional, a statute requirement that they cannot contribute to an entity. However, I met with Platte County commissioners and I regularly interface with them, and They have been very supportive in a lot of other things, opening doors for the 27 committee, with hotels in Platte County that are funding the 27 committee, and also the Economic Development Corporation for Platte County has been very, very helpful. We work together jointly on a project, talk about collaboration with the Kansas City Area Development Council to encourage, we pulled together, I can't go into too much detail, cost figures about moving other U.S. Army facilities to Fort Leavenworth for future growth at Fort Leavenworth. So they cannot directly, the county commission Platte cannot directly provide contributions, but in many other ways, they have been very supportive of our mission.
Okay. You have any more questions, Commissioner?
Nope,
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
Have you come up with something, David?
Commissioners, if the committee or the commission wishes to support this without making a binding financial commitment at this time, the board can simply state that that is the position of the board. You are missing Commissioner Holland, and I know you have a very tight time frame, Doctor, but generally the board can support, or excuse me, express its support for the concept of moving forward with the proposal.
Okay. So you want to,
Request something in writing, just
Yeah.
like I would imagine that the county commission would want to have a written approval from the foundation that they're going to fund it, rather than saying.
Yes, we would like written approval.
It puts me in a difficult position.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Flynn, the board could issue written support for this. I think it needs to be contingent upon other entities supporting this proposal as well, because as the doctor stated, this is a collaborative effort. So with that caveat, I think the board could move forward on that basis.
I think Mark's,
Yeah, I think that there's been a couple of good things that are brought up here, and that is, I understand you have a timeline, but before we commit, and I mean commit, to
Right.
$500,000, it's fine to commit in principle as long as we can negotiate and get a formalized agreement before this board. I think it's too big of a request to just do over a handshake, basically, which is what we have here. We need an agreement that has the details lined out, just for you to consider and for them to consider as well, just to protect both entities here. I think that can lay out the subject to the funding from the private entity, subject to entering into a pilot agreement. Those are all things that need to be done. Today, to commit to the intent to go through forward with that process is fine. I just would be careful about saying, yes, today, we're telling you, you will get the money, because we don't have all the details.
well, the only commitment outside, there's two. One doesn't go through, they don't get the 500. And that's the the foundation ever who's one, or the person who's wanting to give the 2-point-something million. Now, I don't want to see the program held up if the city of Leavenworth isn't going to participate. But I don't visualize them saying, oh, we don't want to participate if this county government is doing what they should be doing, because Lansing, Tonganox, and Basser, they're going to want some help on things that they're going to want to do. And I mean, Leavenworth's just blocked itself out the way I look at it. And so I know they're going to participate. They are going to be very proud to participate in this program. So I don't want to slow it down. I do know we need tie-ins to control our money before we make the commitment.
And we need to also confirm that we have the money to commit prior to making that commitment.
Well, that's true. So that could be a part of it, you know. But
I've always envisioned a two-step process. One is a motion that is supportive of the project with contingencies to provide the funding. And then the second one, which I think the county administrator is getting to, is an actual contract. I don't want to get tied into a contract right now.
Yeah, I don't either.
I think a motion of support is the first, this is what I had do, is the first step, and then comes a contract after contingencies of that.
I see the lights coming. Go ahead, David.
Commissioner Flynn, Commissioner Smith, I think the doctor and Mark have given you good guidance on this. Again, I think two-step process, an expression of support based upon the presentation this morning, and invite Dr. Grove to submit a proposed agreement based on the presentation, identifying the contingencies that would need to be met before the county could actually make that financial commitment. And that, of course, would involve collaboration with others.
I would ask your support to say that your support is contingent upon
Yes.
funding for the building, because then that puts the action item on the foundation's part now.
Right. Go ahead.
Okay, Commissioner, I think the doctor's inviting a two-step procedure. Green light, expression of support by the board this morning, to be followed by efforts to draft a viable development agreement. That would involve other entities, specifically the cities of the county, and those that have been identified by the 27 committee. Obviously, a lot of work's gone into this presentation. It's a question of turning it into concrete nuts and bolts.
Well, why don't I do a motion to support the presentation today to be followed by a contract as soon as possible so we can decide, depending on the participation of the foundation or who's giving the money, and it will be followed with a contract for us to approve the funds to go into that. In the meantime, we can study, do we have the funds? And the funds are there. I don't care what anybody says. We just talked about that the other day. We said, well, we want to get on a cash basis. There are always funds available in government. They're always there. Now, is there that much there? I don't know. But if we study hard, the funds are there. And, you know, God bless it, this isn't a Tyson. This is potentially some, no. Is that on here?
You're on.
Oh,
You are live.
yeah. Well, I never was able to study the Tyson, so I don't know. But items like this need to go forward, and if for dual or triangular participation, or who knows what, then it makes it much easier for us to come up with the 500 as a total collection. So that's going to be my motion.
Okay, and I'll second your motion. And the way I see it, if we can't come up with the full amount, then maybe we can solicit other cities.
Well, they're going to be volunteering.
They're going to be volunteering
At least one
anyways.
will, I know that.
Okay, well, I have a motion and a second. Voting?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Show. Dr. Show.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have any other presentations this time, Mr. Lawford?
No outside presentation.
All right, so we're ready for the consent agenda items to vote on. Have you looked at the consent agenda items? You got
Yes, I
anything
have.
that wants to be removed?
Nothing really to be removed. Just about 3 statements on the minutes.
Okay. And what was your 3 statements?
3 statements. I think we did something Monday that we shouldn't have done, and it was unfair to Mr. Mars to put him in a position to talk for somebody else. That is hearsay, innuendo. Ever who was at that meeting with the courts should have been here to give that presentation rather than having Mr. Mars say that he had talked to somebody. And so that was just a point that I thought, you know, in the future, has to be
Okay.
somebody that's participated.
Yeah.
I still have not received the date of when, I guess, Mr. Bigsby, Mr. Graber, and Mr. Holland received the classified information from the clerk's office. And I think that's important to get that. But other than that, if we can get that, or if I can get that, Supposedly, I heard that Mr. Smith was handed out the same information, but it needs to be taken care of. So
What information is that?
when Mr. Bixby got the information that
Oh, I don't know of any date he would have got that.
Well, I need something.
Well, I don't know how we're gonna get it unless we
Well-
hire a private investigator.
Is that a motion? Somehow, the information
Not
got...
today, but maybe in the future.
Somehow, that data got into his hand that he, as we mature, we get forgetful, right? So we leave stuff
I
like
haven't
that.
forgot about it yet.
Yeah, but, you know, we leave things. Well, I wonder where I left my pen, you know, and I go around looking for my pen.
Well, your pen's not gonna show up on the news.
Well, but the folder was.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, see, that's what he accidentally forgot and left it,
Mm-hmm.
okay?
But shouldn't have had it in the first place.
Well, that's true. But that's a situation down the line, probably. So, I need something. Isn't there a checkout book when you check out that stuff?
You're not
I gave the
supposed to-
date when Mr. Holland didn't give the information back to you. That's in the record. Now, that's the same way as him checking it out and not giving it back. So, all I'm saying is something needs to be in my hands so I can say, well, Mr. Bixby had that, you weren't here yet, were you?
No, sir, I was not.
See? So, at that time, you're unimportant. Been elected.
Right, been elected.
Yeah. So, I
Even
need
talked
some...
to commissioners and didn't violate Open Meetings Act.
Right. I need something in my hand that says how he got it, when he got it, and why he got it. So, and I will have a motion when we're all done. So I approve
The consent agenda?
the consent agenda.
Items,
Yes.
okay. I'll second that. Voting?
Aye.
Aye. Are we ready for Council on Aging? Linda, I'm sorry we're running behind. I know you're busy. It happens sometimes.
Before we get started on that, just one thing, a question about the Veterans Day Parade. Just wondered if the board was contingent on riding in the parade. We just need to make an announcement if you ride together.
I'm riding together with any other commissioner. I got my trolley and I've got...
Right, I'll
I've
probably
got
be in another part of the parade.
I got the retired teachers.
All
So,
right.
But I'll-
Okay.
appreciate that though. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, we'll just, that's appropriate. Okay. Linda, how are you today?
Good morning. I sent my spreadsheet overlay to you so we would get all of October, and I assume you do have that.
Mm-hmm.
As you can see, that 76% of our audit budget for the year, which is right on task with that. And if you look at our revenues, our nutrition, we're at 95% of revenue on that. And in our transportation, we're at 107%. So financially, things are looking good for the Council on Aging. I had sent over at RPA for a catering truck. We had a gentleman that, and I sent the briefing over first and then this.
Right.
Who was on Meals on Wheels and left us money to purchase specifically for the Meals on Wheels program. Our caterer truck is what we consider the hot box in the back, is a modified camper. It never has had a cooling system, so we just use the coolers like you go camping with. And so we have researched a little bit, and would like to be approved to use the memorial funds to purchase a caterer truck after we go out for bids and do that process.
So what you're telling...
But it was not budgeted for the caterer truck, but we would use it strictly for the memorial account.
Okay, so you're saying it's approximately 45,000?
Well,
Well, you've got to go out for bids.
oh, allocated to companies, so we'll try to research and get some more, but I just wanted an idea about how much they cost.
So what you're saying that there is enough money in the account to pay for this?
He gave us more than that.
He gave you more than that amount. Isn't that nice of people? What a wonderful country. Always giving. So is there other funds in that account?
Yes.
Do we ever get a report on that?
We started to, our board elected to start having fundraising
Right.
and last month, and they have already raised $700, so we would
Right.
put that in with it.
Okay,
But-
so what we have now in that account is just what the board raised and what this gentleman gave?
No, we have, people give us memorials all the
Okay,
time.
now,
Yeah.
do we ever get a report on the total amount? That's
It
what-
comes over, I don't know
Yes,
if the
sir.
board gets
Okay,
it. Yeah.
fine.
Okay.
I don't have any problems. I
It
think,
says a lot for your organization that somebody would leave sizable donations.
sure does. And I think it ought to have a cooler, you know, somebody at some time could have a bad day and they would say, you know, this isn't the proper temperature. So I'll move to approve the going out for bids for a caterer truck for the Council on Aging.
I'll second that. Voting?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, just going over the departments, and I'm going to leave transportation until last, and so I'm going to, that's a little off schedule here, but I'm going to
That's
do
fine.
our information and assistance first. We have a new employee in that position. She's doing great. We're averaging about 377 units a month. That will increase this month because of Medicare enrollment, people coming in for counseling for that. But that's per month what we're doing in that program. So I'm very happy with that. We also had started outreach in the outlying cities. Once a month, we go to Basel, we go to Linwood, and we go to Tongi, and eventually hope to go to Easton. And that allows people to come in from the community and not have to drive to Leavenworth and visit with our counselors about any problem they may be having. Any questions about that?
Nope.
Transportation, and I know Commissioner Klemp, you had mentioned at the last meeting that you had some questions about it, and I'll try to answer some of them, and then we can discuss that. Our transportation service, as of January 1, up to the present, has continued to increase. Now, the reason, as I said before, I don't know what that is. Is it that we're not doing general public transportation anymore, and we're just doing seniors and the disabled? Or is it because we have more people? We all know the baby boomers are aging. There are more people that are dependent on wheelchair and other assisted devices. But since the beginning of January until the 1st of September, we had done 5,501 disabled trips. I think that's quite remarkable that we're able to do that. I know you had talked about the vehicles that we have, and I wanted to just go over that a little bit with you and the personnel. We have 10 vehicles in our transportation department, and we also have 10 employees. 3 of those are full-time, 3 are part-time, and the remainder are intermittent on-call. We have 1 vacancy right now. We, of those 10, they are used. We drove 139,000 miles so far this year with those vehicles. I'm sorry, it's 169,000. And we've provided 17,419 trips. We make a trip to Kansas City almost every day. That's if somebody has a medical appointment, they need to go to the med center or some type of specialized medical care. We also transport for dialysis, and that's, a have-to situation for people that, that need that. So it's, you know, I feel like we are on the road, we're driving the miles, we're, I think, doing the best job we can, because I'm very proud of the fact that we've had no major accidents at all, not even, we had a vehicle in our shore department that somebody ran into as they were test driving a car here last month, and just little ding. But our transportation that's going into Kansas City or from one end of the county to the other, no
You have a
major
good
accidents.
safety record.
Yes, yeah. And we had a goal this year of placing transportation signs when we became exclusively for senior and the disabled. We have placed one sign in Tonganoxie at 2440 Highway. We have one in Easton. It's in the downtown area of Easton. And we plan on placing in Linwood and in Basser. My question to you is, because I think you had some concerns about the number of vehicles that we had in transportation, if your desire is to cut that number down, we might not want to advertise out in the community, because I don't think we could meet the need.
No, that was never my thought process.
Okay.
We have Mark who is looking into transportation system, okay?
Mid-American Regional Council.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And it might alert Mark Twain also. But he was a pretty bright guy.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if you get together with Northeast Mental Health someday and sit down and discuss transportation, and it wasn't just a week ago, I mentioned this probably years ago, to come up with, well, when this takes place with Mid-America Regional, we will be in a little bit in advance to say, well, we have this and this. How can we incorporate all of this into an operation rather than this transportation, this and this, and nobody's really knowing what the other one's doing. So that's all it is. For you two guys to get together and sit down and talk and take what you come up with, file it over here in a file cabinet. So when the council, Mid-America Regional Council, comes up and says, hey, you know, we're looking at doing this, and you reach over here and say, well, you know, we're ahead of you, and this is what we've come up with, and this is what we think will be important as an input into what we're doing. That's all it's for. Now, if you want to go out and get rid of 10 vehicles, is that your suggestion today?
No, that was not my
Oh, okay.
suggestion. I didn't know what your vision was for.
I have a vision of being ahead of the program and when it takes place, if it ever takes place.
Now, I will say, you mentioned the mental health center. I'm not sure the two populations that they would want to be, if you had to be on a long route, that would work, because many of our seniors
I
have
understand
that
that.
thing of, I want to go directly there. The other thing is, the state does have a regulation that we could not drive. If they're on the 5310 program, we could not drive any of their vehicles. In other words, we couldn't take a driver and say,
But
theirs is off today.
Yeah, but these are all things that can be massaged and worked out, you know. I can remember when the state said the people that were in institutions were now going to be housed out here in a high-rise. And my first question was, now they don't have to take their medicine. Some of these people take medicines, and they're going to be living out here in a high-rise. So it's just thinking ahead, that's all it was.
Okay. Well,
Nothing.
okay, we're on the same page.
No, we're on
Hopefully-
KU.
hopefully.
KU basketball, that's what counts, okay?
We're there too, right?
Good.
Our nutrition department. Here again, our units are up. I think that has to do with the fact that we really have a very good caterer. He is making very good meals. It's
Who's doing that?
Terry Booker.
Terry Booker, very good.
And we're serving 261 meals a day. We totally this year have done 49,441. We have 8 volunteers and 7 staff, and we've driven 98,253 miles as of the end of last month. And we are averaging at least once a week of finding a senior that's in distress. They've either fallen, something's happened, they need us to call someone. So not only are they getting that meal, but you know, there's somebody checking in on them, being a volunteer or one of our staff members.
And that's a good aspect.
Yeah.
Same way with neighbors. Neighbors should be checking.
Yeah. And the caterer truck, you know, we're holding our breath on that, because if that's ever down, the food has to reach there at 140-degree temperature and with a time frame. And we have no backup for that. So that is another reason why we really are very thankful you are allowing us to go out to bids to hopefully replace that one.
Very good.
And that's all I have, unless you have questions of me.
I guess you and Mr. Lawfrey had worked out a deal, wasn't the rent in question about an increase or something on your building?
That was an agreement that actually the board has approved several months back that made it, we
And that's
amended.
not come up again or anything with the
I think it's
the
been
new year
addressed.
coming up?
Yeah.
We're okay?
It allows
Good.
for them to do a COLA adjustment, but it's part of the budget process. It's already been addressed for this year. It shouldn't come up again
Okay.
until.
I didn't think it
probably-
was supposed to come up flat when it did.
Well, it wasn't, but
Okay.
the board did agree to allow an amendment to the contract for rent.
Okay.
And that was
I just
in,
want to make sure
I think that was in June. I think that's when it was.
18 rolling around, we
Yeah.
had to deal with something like that. But
We shouldn't.
anyways, no, my question is, can you find a place bigger to hold your annual event? Because I couldn't get in.
Well, there's 2 reasons for that, probably.
What's that? Oh, I didn't buy my ticket ahead of time? That's
Right.
correct, I did not. I thought I could
Right.
show up at the door.
Well, I will tell you, we are, now, you can support us by going to IHOP. We're getting 10% of the proceeds
Yeah.
on November for our transportation.
Okay?
So you can go have some pancakes
Okay.
and support the Council on
God
Aging.
bless your heart. I need to go to IHOP.
I
Okay.
got the light meals you can eat.
We are waiting, actually, to answer your question on that, to see about the new hotel downtown,
Mhm.
what kind of facilities they're going to have for large conference and meeting areas.
But it's really unbelievable how the county and the community support Council on Aging.
We have
It's
been
just-
very blessed.
that's-
People.
Well, it speaks for your
Yes.
organization.
You know, I just heard the old country club is trying to move all their exercise machines downstairs, and they're going to open up the country club as a food process to serve people. And so it's amazing how much money there is, because we got all those facilities all over that are just popping up, and then the new rentals down there on Choctaw, they got an operation, and out on 4th Street, they got an operation, so.
We did have another fundraiser, the Eagles, for the whole month of September. Any new person that went in and played bingo, they sent $5, and so our transportation again earned $400 off of that. So,
Very good.
anyway, the community's very good, from one end of the county to the other. They're
Yep.
great.
All right. Well, thank you and your staff for what you do.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Linda. Block chalk.
We're ready for Mr.
I didn't say that.
Ready for Mr. McGaw.
So you can add this into and then I don't have to come back later. All these wrecks, tractor trailers, you know, we're gonna be $250,000 short of tractor trailers in the year, what, 2019 or 2020? Does insurance cover any of that when they have a spillage, or do we, the private citizen, pick that up?
We have a resolution on the books, Commissioner, that the spiller pays, basically. So whether it's the transportation driver's fault or not. It's the transportation industry's responsibility under the Right to Know Act of federal law.
So do they pay us?
They do. They reimburse us. We bill them, if you will.
Okay, so what did it cost on one of the 300-gallon spillage? What did that cost?
300 gallon. When we look at that, we use the FEMA cost codes with the vehicles and what have you, and it came back at about a little over $360 for the payment back on. We have to pay back what our cost.
No time and labor then?
No, we do it for equipment, but we can't do time and labor through the community right to know. It's whatever, because you're already paying me, if you will.
Yeah, I understand that, but we're paying you. The guy that went out here and missed the turn because he was going too fast or ran into the bumpers, the center divider, because he fell asleep, because now there's complaints in the industry. We're not making the money that we should be making. And there's a reason for that, is now they have to watch the hours, you know. Of course, everybody's aware, and it's the same thing in the aviation world. You can only fly so many hours. Now the truckers, you know, they can't drive all the way across country. Well, some of them probably do. There's always a way around every rule and regulation. But to me, we need to be looking into, it didn't cost $360 to clean up that spill. It probably cost a couple $1,000s.
Well, they have the hazardous material team that comes in that they have to pay as well. That's what the county was out on the product that we used, and then the fire services that were out there as
Okay,
well.
I'm just wanting to know that we're getting our money from what we're doing to clean up somebody else's mess. My car runs into your car, then my insurance company pays, doesn't it?
That's correct.
They don't just pay to clean up the glass and have the police department or the sheriff's department come clean up the glass. They pay for everything. So, and somewhere out here in the county, there's 2 sirens in the same area.
That's correct.
Is there a reason for that?
Yes, sir.
Good.
The new sirens, with the new siren project, the new sirens are in place and they're adding electricity to those
Okay.
siren sites. So we got to keep both of them going until the new sirens
Very
are
good.
totally on, and then we have
That's
to
the
go.
only question I'm going to have. Go ahead with your report.
Okay. And giving me more gray hair.
When you were commissioner before, remember how young Chuck was?
Don't bring that up.
He always nudges me on that, Commissioner, so.
I think his mother and dad brought him in.
Commissioners, as we've alluded to, I've had 5 hazardous material calls that we've been responded to within this last quarter. The tractor-trailer accidents, there were 2 on the Kansas Turnpike, and then we had 1 at the Lawrence service area where the hose had busted at the fuel pump, and there was 20 gallons of diesel fuel that was lost there. And a gas line that was struck here in the city of Leavenworth off of Muncie Drive caused a fairly large fire. I was contacted by the city folks and then by Jamie Miller also, coordinated with the Council on Aging to bring their buses up to, and this was like 7 o'clock in the morning. So Council on Aging was very responsive in getting their people together and transporting those citizens. As a result, Kansas Gas was able to get that line shut down before we had to truly evacuate them to those folks to a shelter. Responded to a school bus accident. Where's the car there at the Glenwood Ridge Middle? It was, again, a cleanup of fluids, but there was no students on the bus. It was just the bus driver and actually her child that was on the bus, so nothing exciting there. We had 2 orphan 5-gallon drums of hydrochloric or hydrogen peroxide. I'm sorry, hydrochloric acid. Hydrogen peroxide is at the city of Baser. It's the same thing they use in waste treatment plants. So we were able to get that container back in and give it to the city of Baser, and they accepted the responsibility of disposing of it. So we had no cost in that particular scenario. Had a major spill of hydraulic fluid in the city of Tonganoxie from a trash service truck. We were out there for several hours. We're waiting for the bill back on that, so I could not tell you exactly what we're looking at. But it was over about 4 city blocks within the city of Tonganoxie proper. Monitored a great solar eclipse. Had nothing to report back on that. We had a lot of traffic. It was extremely cloudy that day, so disappointed folks. On our weather events, we've had several tornado and severe thunderstorm watches. We had the one severe thunderstorm watch, one severe thunderstorm warning that contains some very high winds between 70 and 80 mile an hour is what we guessed at down the south end of the county. We had some residents that suffered some structural loss just due to trees blowing into the houses that wasn't actually blown into. That we had to contend with a little bit of debris cleanup through that time frame. Stranger Creek was under a flood warning for 6 different times through the last quarter. Under preparedness, presented to the staff of the county shop regarding weather safety in the workplace, and also presented to the Lions Club here in town, training utilizing the last hurricane responses that have been going on the south end of the United States, and just tried to put it into perspective that they need to be prepared just as well as their neighbors. Provided training to Leavenworth School District on earthquake preparedness. It's the first time I've actually done earthquake preparedness. Kansas does not support earthquake preparedness. They're starting to come on board now with the number of them that they've had throughout the state. And as Dr. Snow was talking about the STEM program, I was honored. This is my 4th year now with the school districts here in Lansing, Leavenworth, and then Fort Leavenworth with the STEM program for the 7th and 8th graders, so they're preparing them for when they get into the high school process. But I had about 400 children come through my demonstration that I gave about 40-minute presentations to various size groups as they came through. Exercise and training, provided statewide exercise training in Kansas Citizen management teams, which is held in Scott City. I was the evaluator for the exercise. This was a spin-off from the exercise that was actually in Salina, and we had one in Emporia earlier than that, to bring all the resources together within various parts of the state in very primitive conditions, if you will, and operate in the event of a disaster. Evaluated the Miami County flood exercise and also Waterloo for their levee protection infrastructure program. Here, conducted a tabletop exercise with Eastern Country Care staff, and there's a misprint. It wasn't as a result of a tornado, but the exercise was as a result of a tornado that might have hit the facility going through there. Commissioners, if you recall, we've had 2 nursing homes that are long-term care, I should say, facilities that we've had to evacuate. One was Easton back in 2007, and the other one was Tonganoxie nursing home as a result of a fire in July. So I try to keep pushing that out there, the responsibilities of those. I am serving on the MARC exercise team. I continue to serve on that as the exercise lead. Here in the Midwest, we usually don't do recovery exercises. We always do response or prepared exercise. So this will be the first of its kind in the Midwest to try to work through this process. Simulated exercise training set with our amateur radio operators. We did that here a couple weekends ago, utilizing the wildfire in Johnson and Leavenworth County. What we're looking at there was communication failure amongst the hospitals and various county facilities and things of this nature, to be able to let the amateurs work through their communications process to keep communications going between critical facilities. And then the Sunflower Plan, I think Mr. Lawfrey communicated that to the board. It was really, I don't want to say it was a non-event. There was a lot going on with the Grinner Sunflower Farm, but we did not have the traffic issue that we've had in the past. So the county did a good job as far as county staff and putting together a plan that we really didn't need a whole lot to work through there. Through my planning process, working on had a department head meeting here a month ago, and we're trying to get the continuity of operations planning process to get all the departments working on their continuity. in the event that something would happen to one of the county facilities or their agency. And we'll be working with each department head. I want to start it October 23rd, but the time didn't allow me to do that. Start sitting down with department heads and start massaging their plan, if you will, and make sure they have everything included with that. So my goal was to have that tested and completed by either late November or early December to work through that process. Working with the state to update our countywide debris management plan. Commissioners may or may not know that I'm the debris guru of the state of Kansas. I teach debris management throughout the state. I'm the only instructor, but they utilize Leavenworth County's plan for the rest of the counties throughout the state. So they want to make sure that ours is correct before they push it through. Through grants, continue to work on the mitigation grant. It's been kind of a slow process. It started out to be a federal process, and now it's back to a state, but it's still going to be FEMA-approved funding. I'm not for sure for Commissioner Clint, this was an acquisition of property, flood-prone properties. There's in 93 and 98, we did a buyout, and then attempted in 2005, and then there's not been any funding. Now there's funding. We're trying to go after that grant process. Other than that, that's about all I have, Commissioners. Unless you have any information for me.
15 minutes ago, I said I was through. Many years ago, I brought up flooding of Strange Creek. Everybody remember Jerry Bowman?
Yes.
He went to the lake out there where East was. A big lake like a ferry. And they do it because I had 160 acres that would have been on it. You know, I couldn't make money, I guess. But it didn't go through. Thank you. So I said, why don't we start at the headwaters of Stranger Creek? Just don't go into the other counties because they require studies and blah, blah, blah. And we start down the line and we go to this, should be using this name, it's common. Smith, say, we want to put a dry pond in here. We want to control the water that's going into the drainage so it doesn't flood down below. And, well, it wasn't a good idea. I guess because it was somebody, it was my idea, not somebody else's idea. That's the way ideas go. And so you put in 1 or 2 dry ponds a year. By now, since that was probably 78, we had Stranger Creek control. Now, you can put in a wet pond if you want, but that's when you have to pay for it, the Smiths do, because they have to extend it up to make a wet pond. Still going to have the ability to control the flood water coming off that way. And if they didn't want to, you go on down to the next one, next one, next one. Somebody would say, yeah, I like that one. So it didn't go through. So when we buy this land, who owns it?
The county actually owns it. It stays in public domain for the rest of its life. When we look at a parcel, Commissioner, I'm just using this for an example. If there's 70 acres that house is sitting on, we buy the house and 1 acre. The rest of the 70+ acres remains in that ownership, so they can farm it, what have you, but no building can ever be built back onto that
So
parcel.
we leave the house there, though?
No, the house comes in, that is removed.
Okay.
The house and the structures within that 1 acre parcel that we identify
Okay.
is removed.
Well, I'm just sort of curious because, you know, I keep seeing the problem up here on the Missouri River. It's still there. How come that land was never bought out and removed the homes?
We're attempting to.
Attempting.
No, that's part of the mitigation grant.
Oh, okay.
Those parcels.
So the house and the barn could be removed. We could have somebody farm it if they wanted to.
That's correct.
Like over there by Platte City, you know. He loses 3 crops and makes 1. Okay, I'm just curious, because that's been up there, as
It's not that I don't like the people living there. I've known them for years, but it's something we're working on.
That's correct, and that's part of the mitigation project. Is to,
How many do we have left?
we have, the grant identifies 6 parcels. I say 6 parcels, there's 6 structures.
Okay. So I'd like to have you or somebody look into the Klondike and say, hey, there's some feasibility here, there's nothing here, but it won't be done in 14 months.
No, and I can tell you that as a result of the 2011 flood of the Missouri River at that time, all the ground on the dry side of the levee, if you will, not all of it, but a good portion of it has been bought up by the Corps of Engineers to put back into wetland grounds, so it's not being farmed like it used to be and things of that nature because of the continuous loss.
Thank you.
And I guess what you're wanting Mr. McGaw to look at, is that like a Corps of Engineers
It is.
thing? Yeah,
With the ponds?
yeah.
And the Division
That would
One.
still be a division of Corps of Engineers, wouldn't it, when it comes to flood control?
I bet the county could do it by itself. But the Corps of Engineers could be invited, but now you're talking about you won't even be here in office.
You're probably right, Commissioner. I understand.
Yeah, there is.
But with,
Commissioner Clamp, actually, the dry pond, I think, is technically referred to as impoundments.
Correct.
Yeah.
Or dry legs.
And I think, I'll work with Chuck on this, there should be some preliminary plans for that from the early 90s from the Stranger Drainage District, and it looked for a series of impoundments. Of course, that plan envisioned impoundments into Jefferson and Atchison counties. But Commissioner Clamp, I think he may be right. We could certainly look at doing our part first. And the use of impoundments, you avoid some EPA considerations as far as whether you're creating wetlands, but it does work on slowing down the flow of tributaries into Stranger Creek, so that's certainly something we can look into.
See, and that's what all cities are looking at now, you know.
Yeah,
Texas.
retention pond.
Yeah. To hold the water that's coming off a certain flow, so.
I'm gonna throw another agency at you. What about the Department of Ag? Do they
Yeah,
get
I've got
involved
it
with some of
down.
that?
Yeah, Division of Water Resources
Yeah.
would have a lot to say.
We got a lot of agencies that want to.
Yeah, we do. Just try to bypass them whenever you can.
I know, but I don't know how you can.
Simple, you do it and then, oh my
Oh,
God.
you'd rather ask for forgiveness instead of permission?
Yeah.
Okay. On Mr. McGaw's debris management, I was in a conference several years ago, McPherson, Hutcherson, somewhere, maybe. And I got to sit in one of his, he was their speaker. Got blindsided.
Well, he's sort of like a deity.
Well, I'm telling you, he's travels the state. He's known all over the state. We're very lucky to have him. And I think if we ever had a disaster, I think he would put the call out, and I'm sure we'd have so many people here, we wouldn't know what to do with.
What year were you hired?
About 88, 88, 89. See, I remember when he was hired.
September of '88. I took
September of
over
88.
the director's position in October 31st. I was dressed as a
I
clown.
was not wanting to be blamed, you know, so you wasn't during one of my periods.
No.
Good.
But he'd worked here during one of your periods.
Yes, he did.
Did it without a contract, too.
We didn't give you a contract?
Didn't need one. Probably
You thought
worked
about
better
doing it?
without it.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Okay.
Chuck, I
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Commissioners.
Oh, let's hit another topic while we're here. Let's go through if we have a major snowstorm, how we close the courthouse so we can refresh everybody's memory.
We have a policy out there. And
Yes, we do.
The policy states that it's conferred with Public Works, myself, and the Sheriff's Office. And, of course, Mark would definitely be added into that. And find out if it's going to be treacherous, if you will, for folks to come in. If we deem it's going to be a safety hazard for the employees, Mark would make the determination, you know, with the board's approval.
We got to call Kansas City for them to determine we can close? Oh, you mean Mr. Lauer?
When I said that in my report, you didn't bring that up.
So that will not come to us unless you feel that you can't answer that?
Well, I think from a timing perspective, and it would be pretty difficult to.
Very good, I like that.
Yeah,
Just so we know before we drive in here for a meeting and the doors locked. And that's, the public needs to know, like I said.
And it's worked out good. I mean, we haven't had but just a handful of closures.
Right, but we have had to do it, and it's always, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Do you know how hard that was to get anybody that, of course, we weren't sitting up here, we were downstairs, to get anybody to agree that the courthouse should occasionally be closed because of a storm?
I do recall.
It was ungodly. That's nice to hear.
It's hard to get the sidewalks and the steps, everything.
Well, yes.
For the public, I mean, it's difficult.
Before you finish everything, we adjourn. I have one motion to make here.
Okay, well, we done with Mr. McGaha? Do you have anything else?
No, sir.
All right.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Klemp, I'd like some basically clarification on the point. On Monday, you effected 3 personnel actions, basically terminating the employment of individuals. Those individuals claim to have contracts with the county, and those contracts are currently being challenged by legal action. Just for clarification purposes, did you wish those individuals, through their legal counsel, to be notified that the board would not be paying the severance and basically buyout that was contained within those alleged contracts?
I don't know, they have legal contracts?
They have contracts that are being currently challenged by the county. The county's asserting they are not valid. They all 3 parties do have legal counsel. I would like to notify them, based upon their requests, that the provisions contained within those contracts would not be followed by the county.
Where are they challenging them? Just here?
It's in Leavenworth County District Court, Commissioner.
Okay. Are you saying we need to go further than recognize their challenge and saying, no, you're not getting paid, or?
I would like to make that response to them.
So you need a motion?
Yes. Commissioners, it's just a point of clarification. That request has been made. I'd like to answer it.
David, you know how much I love you. Point of clarification, and it's going to the courts? There is no clarification when it goes to the
Commissioner,
courts.
the response wouldn't go to the courts. It'd go directly to the individuals via their legal counsel.
Did they get a paycheck yesterday or the day before?
I'd have to check with that.
They should have got that.
They would have because of the payroll schedule.
Well, why don't they wait till next payroll and see if they get a paycheck?
Well, I think, I appreciate what Mr. Van Paris is asking you, and I think that that's a good question, and what you just brought up, that according to the agreements that they have in place, whether they're valid or not will be determined at another time and place, it requires that we pay out a severance. So your staff is asking, was that the intent when you took the action on Monday, was that those severances be honored and paid out? And I think that is what Mr. Van Paris was asking, is if that was your intent. And if it wasn't, we just want to be clear.
Yeah, so my motion was, they're fired, everything ceases.
Thank you.
I don't even want to talk to them, but if you want a motion that,
Just clarification. It's
you
up
want
to
a
you.
clarification that they are no longer receiving anything from the county in regards to their contracts, is that what you want?
Yes, Commissioner.
That's my motion.
Thank you.
You just made a motion, or you just clarified your motion from last week?
Well, do you need clarification or a
Commissioner, I
motion?
think you clarified that point for me.
Okay, very good, I've
So I
clarified.
don't need a motion on that. Okay.
Okay.
And you had something else, Commissioner?
Yes. Some time ago, and in my world, a week or two is some time ago, we put human resources back under the county administrator. I now want to put human resources back under the county clerk, and that is my motion. And I've already discussed it with her, and she's willing to accept it.
I'll second that with some discussion. We had put it under Mr. Lawfrey because of a contract issue. While it's under Mr. Lawfrey, he has the authority to work with the clerk. Is that correct? If you need any assistance from that, or how do you see that?
I mean, all of our departments have the ability to work together
Yeah.
on any issues that come up. I'm not sure why there would need to be a change.
Okay.
I think things are working currently the way they're set up.
Okay. Would you be willing to meet with the clerk and maybe work out some details and come back to us on that? Because
I guess I'm confused on what it is that's not being addressed for the clerk that needs to be addressed. Nothing to my knowledge. So I guess to the best of my knowledge, we're moving forward. We're trying to accomplish a stable work environment for all of the staff, and so I'm not sure what the intention of the motion is. If there is something that needs to be addressed with staff, I guess I wasn't prepared for this motion, so I don't know what it's about.
well, I'm not either. That's why I wanted to,
That's the problem with life, where everybody's wanting to be prepared. I'm prepared for everything I'm going to say for the next 14 months. It's going to come out just like that. Now, I studied this program that we just saw on the 27 committee. I already studied that, already had an opinion, and we listened to your opinions and they came across. I was happy with it being under the clerk before, except there was still a person involved that was drawing a paycheck, and that person no longer is drawing a paycheck. So I think it's very simple for it to go back under the operation of the clerk, and that relieves you to manage the county. That's what I'm trying to get across. We're about to hear this 5 commissioners, and I really don't want to hear 5 commissioners because, I've even heard something bad about Doug, and I think, well, wait a minute. Is that the same Doug Smith I know? And, I've heard some things about Bob. And I'll guarantee you, some of you have heard something about me. Anybody that hadn't heard anything about me, raise their hand. See, all that. See, no,
no way.
You know why I love you?
No way. That's rigged.
That is great. Well,
Now I know why you went back and seen her before.
well, nobody
the
else
meeting.
here is a part of the greatest generation. She and I are the part of the greatest generation. You don't
I
understand that.
agree. I do agree with
So,
that.
I think that there was nothing wrong with it before, except, as I said, the human resource manager was still here. Theoretically, now she isn't, but they'll be back in lawsuits. And I think it's better to free up the county administrator to administrate the county. Not running departments, but administrating, and because you're being evaluated, Mark, and I want you to do a good job at being the county administrator so we don't get into the 5 county commissioners, or 7, or 9 if we want to take that up. We don't need that. If you are running and we're setting policy, you're administrating, you brought this up, your job is to administrate our policy, and that was a good correction. And we set the budget. And I come before you and say, I want to buy that car, and you say, well, have you gone through the procedures, you've gone out for the bids, and blah, 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 blah. And they come in, they say, these are the bids, and I don't even have to deal with that, because I have set the budget. So
Okay.
that's
I appreciate it. I just didn't understand
Yeah.
where it's come from. Now I
yeah,
understand.
that's all
Thank
right.
you.
Very good.
Thank you.
So there's a motion and a second.
Okay. So are you supportive of this motion?
I'm always supportive of the direction of the board.
I know that, but, I mean,
I'm liking you more every day.
I think that what we've discussed before is policy and administration. I do believe that Mr. Klemp makes an excellent point. There are 15 department heads in the county. That's a lot to have, and obviously some of them are elected, so I wouldn't want to say that I have direct supervision, but I do have to work with them on a daily basis to make sure that the functioning of the county goes forward. So I appreciate the sentiment, and I understand where he's coming from with that. I would be remiss if I didn't say that I think that 17 is too many to answer to one person,
Yes, it is.
or not answer to, but to work with one person. It's
But
a-
there's, I hear
it's
there's some,
extension
something
of-
going on to reduce even that amount.
Well, I'd hope we could work towards
Yeah.
something along those lines. But that being said, I would want to be sure that both the clerk, I shouldn't say both, all of us, the clerk and myself and the HR staff have a chance to sit down and discuss how we affect that change. It's a, I need to have more discussion on with the clerk to make sure that works within her chain of command, and that I'm not creating a problem for her, because she already has a lot going on too. I mean, elections and everything else. I just want to make sure that would work with her too before we would make any kind of change like that.
Okay.
I don't quite love you as much as it is.
Well,
it's not just me that's impacted by this, and I want to make sure
Well,
that.
but she told me. I mean, I asked her,
okay.
can you handle it? She said, not a problem. So,
Okay. I would like to visit with the clerk myself also, and Mark, and I will support. I mean, after I talk to everybody that's with Mr. Lawfrey and the clerk's office, I will, today I'm not going to vote for it, but I mean, I'll call for a vote.
Well,
motion in a second.
Okay, that's fine. What I was going to say
I
is.
might be not telling the truth.
No, that's not the way that goes, Commissioner.
Okay,
No,
thank you.
No, I just wanted,
I just wanted to show the people that we disagree at times. Okay?
we do, but I respect you for that, Commissioner.
We respect
But
the
I
board.
want to do, you've had time to do your
Yeah.
homework, and I haven't. And I would, because I didn't know you were going to make this motion, because we don't talk to one another unless we're in a meeting.
Well, how about doing it, bringing it up at a vote for next Thursday? Can you get it resolved that you two can meet with the clerk? And
Yes.
That week would give me plenty of time to meet with everybody.
Very good.
Okay,
Thank you.
then, but we do have a motion in a second, so I'll take a vote.
Oh, why don't you withdraw your second?
I'll withdraw my second. You withdraw your motion.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Very good.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, you came up.
Anything else, Commissioner?
Nothing, man. No, I got to figure him out. And then he said something nice that, well, I have to agree with Mr. Clinton. You know, we're doing good. Okay, no, I do not. I have anything else. I move that we adjourn.
I'll second. Voting? Aye.